Yay. I want to rush over to the graphic design, all this stuff, and then let's talk about like web and UI UX design. So one of the big projects that I done was Honey Baked Ham's website, which is their franchise website. I did everything from like the full-on branding with like the e-brochure, online brochure, essentially. I did their whole website from like all 53 pages of it. And then I also had to do a mobile version of it. It was a lot. And then on top of that, I did QA testing. So it was primarily just me on my end. So, so if you want to know too, it's like if you are, well, for this in particular, Honey Baked Ham, I worked for an agency. And when you work for an agency, you typically give like 2 or 3 options for the client essentially to choose from. But if you're working in-house, that's like another question too, is like agency versus in-house versus freelance, right? So in-house, you're working for one company. Agency, you're becoming a marketing team with various clients to work with essentially. So in that sense, we'll talk about more about agency versus freelance and everything, because it is very similar. Agency, you're just working as a team together. Freelance, you're a one man, one woman studio essentially. So as a UI UX designer, you do have problems and you get hired for a solution. So let me show you their old website. This is their very, very old website. If you do not know, there is a website called Wayback Machine. You can actually look back into, this is loading very slow. It's loading very slow because the website was very slow back then. Yeah, so this was their previous website, which was back in 2016. It was not looking great. There was a lot of information that was not like visibly shown well in general. It was just all put into a landing page. This is not centered. It's not filling in the boxes, so essentially. My company did do another rebrand. So they had this existing branding before. And then we updated it to this. Sorry, it's loading slow. But we updated it to this. This is still not my work, but we just updated it very shortly and within a week, essentially. So we had, in that sense, we had copywriters too that were rewriting every single page, essentially, too. So with that being said, this is back in 2017, and then I joined the agency. And then we did their whole rebranding and everything. So this is the up and coming, I mean, this is the one that's fully live right now. So Honey Baked Ham actually came out with new branding, which is more fun, fresh, which is versus like this was very old school and not that fun. So with that being said, they wanted to do a refresh and everything for the new branding, as you see right here. So, I did work with the team and everything, and to kind of give you like an overview and everything, you will work in it as a team, as an agency again. So a lot of the clients too will say like, oh, I like design 1 and 2, and then can we Frankenstein it into a 3rd design, essentially. So this is definitely my baby. So if you want to check it out fully, you can, which is going to be at honeybakedfranchise.com. Yes, very fun UX experience too. And also the fact that, you know, they want to centralize it, make it very like centralized information, make sure that the client is willing to franchise basically Honey Baked Ham was the goal. Yes. Cool. Let me close all of these. I've also done campaign emails with them as well, which was also another type of information, right? Also, when you work with an agency, you do work with copywriters, and so you have to work and kind of design like the information around it and plan UX in that sense. Denver Broncos email right over here. And then also a website, if you'd like to see it, is called Kick-Ass Content Creator. The interesting thing about this one was that this in particular was for a copywriter, so no images completely. But if you want to take a look at it and everything, it was very fun to do. Check it out and everything. Yeah. So that's me essentially. So yeah, I'm Lorrie May Manuel, and we'll go move on to the conversation and freelance tips. I'm gonna stop my screen now.
Awesome. I really like the color that you pick up for the brand, like the ham brand. Like you can tell that's the primary color that attract and appeal people to stay there. So that's a very smart color that you pick up. So we are heading toward a interview conversation. Like I will talk a little bit about how all this started. Feel free to put down your questions below. It's really flexible and casual to like kind of get to know more the real side of a freelance job. Okay. So first question that I would love to ask Lorrie.
Yes.
So I like to know how this all started. Is it because of the pandemic that pushed you to, start picking up freelance work, or like I want to know the intention of your job transitioning, becoming a freelance, full-time freelancer?
Mm-hmm. So I mean, essentially, I did get laid off from my job, which is again going to be very fortunate. Yeah. But in its own sense, like I've been doing like freelance for almost like 8-9 years, essentially. Another thing too is that like I would get sick a lot, and obviously do not have that many sick days. Mm-hmm. So the reason is, yeah, I just wanted freedom, essentially. Got laid off, and I was like, oh, like I'm getting clients left and right, essentially, and I'm getting paid for my services because they trust me, essentially. So it's pretty much my story.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So, so since then you started there, how do you start pick up or like sharpen your skills to like even reaching out for clients? I would like to know how you polish it during the time when you decided to like, okay, now this is what I'm going to head over. Mm-hmm. How can I start working on my inner skills or like the skills that I wanted people to know I'm capable to do so?
Mm-hmm. Well, so this is a really good question. So basically what you should be doing is that you just need to make yourself like, it's sort of the saying that fake it to make it, essentially. There is that saying, but I guess what you should be doing is that you just need to feel like you need to be able to be confident when talking to somebody, essentially. Because like, I guess another selling point too, if you are talking to gaining clients, right? It's like, it's better for you to say, oh yeah, I can absolutely do that. Or, talking very confidently versus like saying, I don't know if I can really do that. Like you have to kind of build trust with someone. And it's almost like you're building a friendship with somebody. And that's basically their selling point, is that having confidence, essentially.
That's one. So are you a introvert? That does it matter? Like the personality, do you change a little bit since now you have to step up for yourself? Do you find yourself like, I need to step up for myself, so this is why because there's introvert people out there. How can they like work on this part to like tell them, okay, like how can you give them some advice? Because sometimes it's not like easy for them to do it, to like put themselves in the middle. How do you overcome this, or do you have any advice for that?
To really overcome this, I would really highly suggest just going out to networking events. Even just going out, for example, like I'll even go out to karaoke. And then, the golden question is, what do you do? So the what do you do question is like, oh, I'm a designer. Instead of saying I'm just a designer, like you have to say it with confidence too. So once they ask you, hey, oh, you're a designer, can you do logo work? And then, can you do websites and all of that stuff? So it's just really the conversation, like, can you be confident in the conversation? Can you deliver is basically how you gain clients. Even just being highly shameless about like your work, like, hey, I'm so confident in my work. Like, hey, do you need somebody? Because even if that person is not needing their services right now, their friend could be like, oh, actually, I just met somebody that's a, UX designer or UI UX designer. I'll give you their contact, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
that's the secret.
I really agree on that. Like networking definitely to like have people remember all like what you can do. And then when you need that like skills, you kind of link to that person's name. And then just eventually, do you have any experience from getting a job from the experience that you mentioned in like this kind of?
Sorry, what was that?
I mean, do you have any experience that you find yourself getting a job because of that networking that really leads you there?
Yeah. So I guess a really great piece of advice too is that when I was in school, I made sure to network a ton. With that being said, like I got my first job, like a lot of my jobs that I didn't actually never applied to a job. I got referred to those jobs because I networked so much. I will say I'm very introverted, as you can see. Like I play video games and stuff like that. But just be sure that like, you know, even if you are introverted, like it's totally fine for you to find like sort of the gaming like community as well too, who are also very introverted, or maybe you'll find a client that's going to be also introverted too. So yes.
One more questions I have for you. Well, I do have other things, but like related to this topic.
Yeah.
Like, how do you like overcome those days that you have no work to do? Like, what will you do to like? Do you have any experience sharing that part? Because sometimes it can be quite busy, but sometimes like what if there's not a busy time? What will you do, and what will you suggest people to work on?
Well, okay. So the one thing I will say, it's like, obviously you're going to be very down that you aren't getting work, because obviously no work means no money. So we're stressed out all the time.
Yeah.
So what I would suggest too, and always telling my students is like, always, you know, become a student every day. So with that being said, like spend 30 minutes of a craft that you've always wanted to master. So like, if you think that you're not really great at design work, like spend at least 30 minutes of your day, even if it's like, or say you can't do 30 minutes and you're a mom and you have a lot of kids, you can do 10 minutes, right? So really sharpening yourself and your skills is, again, something that I would highly recommend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. One more last question.
Yes.
Related. For me, I always feel like maybe I come from a country that, you know, more East Asia culture. I have a lot of decision that will be interfere, or like I would consider how my family think about. Like, how do you like overcome when you decided to like become a full-time freelancer? Do you have like, how do you find yourself like managing that part?
Well, I will say that it's, you know, like being a freelancer is a lot of work. You're becoming the messenger, you're becoming the contractor, you're your own HR essentially. You have to keep tabs on like what notes are being said between your client and yourself. And not only that, it's like, it's hard to balance that work-life balance essentially. So what I would suggest too is just really set a schedule. So my schedule right now is I have from Monday, it was like Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I work from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So with having a set schedule, I do think that it definitely helps a lot for sure. And then, you know, answering a question about like how to really be confident with parents that are not really understanding that. I mean, let's kind of start to talk about the topic too. Like, I'm Asian American. My parents want me to be nurses and stuff like that, or pharmacists. So, so with that being said, it's like I think really just telling my parents, like, or like not really telling them, but rather showing them, hey, I'm gonna pay for your dinner now, and they're like, oh, that's free, and then that's pretty much essentially they understand that, you know, that I'm taking care of them and they don't have to worry, because it's what parents do, is that they worry all the time because they want their children to succeed essentially.
Yeah, that definitely could happen. I feel like to really know and be responsible, accountable for what you decided to do, I think that's what it matters. Like as long as you can feed yourself and then make sure you're doing something you like, I think that's something eventually our parents or our family can overcome. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So far I have no more like annoying question then. So I would like to have Lorrie to share a little bit on the tips you have as a freelancer. What do you, let us know. Your secret.
Oh gosh, my secret. Oh geez. Hold on just a second. All right, so please get your pen and paper. I do not have slides for these. These are just only like me having a conversation with you, essentially. I'm having a conversation with each and everybody here. Thank you for asking all the questions. There's a lot, actually. So I really appreciate that.
There's a lot.
Yeah. So I will say too is that I will be offering like online classes too for possibly like a master class for freelance and everything, because I want to give you guys the opportunities of what resources you can benefit from, because I also want you guys to make your own money. And also being your own boss is really awesome. Like I don't have to worry about like anything really. Well, yeah, you know what I mean. So some freelance tips. So I want you to, again, like you need to value your time. You need to get, you need to value your time. You're getting paid basically for your service and your knowledge and your expertise. So what I'm trying to say is basically don't do work for free. Your time is valuable. You only have a few time, in this life as yourself. So even if it's only charging for $50 worth of work, you need to get paid either way. So again, value your time. You're getting paid for your service and then also your knowledge and your expertise. So with that being said, like a lot of these clients also need us because we're magicians essentially. We make things out of magic essentially, and then we have to give them sort of a service. Like say a client needs a shop. They have absolutely no idea where to start, and that's where you're going to help them. So yes. Another question too is like basically we kind of answered about this and talked about the topic about like how do you gain clients essentially. I will say that I don't have a website. I barely do social media, but I do get clients word of mouth now. And the real secret to that is that I offer an experience essentially. I'm not there to basically tell them like, oh, hey, you need a website? Yeah, I can do it for you. And then like keep pressing on that I can do that for them. Yes, you can gain that sort of confidence, but you want to give them sort of an experience, right? As if you were talking to them as a friend. So, yes, I get clients word of mouth, but it's also their friends and of other friends. It's because you establish a friendship with them first, but you keep it very professional between you two. So, asking common questions like, hey, how have you been? Or like, oh, I heard you and your kids went to a baseball game or something like that. Clients that have kids also really adore you when you have conversations with kids, by the way. That's how you win them over too. But yes, so I offer an experience and I also give them very easy, accessible package with that being said. Because, the client is going to ask you immediately, how much do you cost or how much is your service? Mm-hmm. And like, if you don't necessarily have confidence in like offering your services and how much you are going to get paid or what you want to get paid, then they make, kind of deteriorates the trust and they'll go to somebody else. So with that being said, offer some package pricing. So say, I don't want to give you guys like an ideal pricing, but you should definitely figure that out essentially. For websites, my last agency was offering like $100,000 for a website. So think about that sense. So it's like,
wow.
Think about those things too. It's like, how much can you offer? Because now you're in a one-person team and how much you can typically want to go. I mean, I've seen some of the IterateUX members, like I had saw that somebody was like charging $15,000. You can absolutely do that. But consider again, like how much time, and also if you are going to rush it, like you can absolutely get paid more for that. Because again, you need to value your time and you're also getting paid for your service. You are very knowledgeable in it. you have the expertise for that. Another thing to talk about, like the whole experience, is that you want to over deliver. You do not want to sell. You do not want to be so robotic, essentially. Again, just offer some sort of experience and very unique to you, essentially. Another tip too is that when you expand your network, I want you to kind of picture the type of work that you want to do, essentially. Don't do work that's very like marketable and stuff like that. They're hiring you for your service, so you need to be able to sell that sort of style that you want. So that being said, like focus on the specific niche, aka your superpowers. So say that you're very great at like design and also UI UX design, then you can say that you can offer that sort of thing. Say you're very strong in like wireframing and consulting. Consulting as in like offering like UI UX design tips. Like you don't have to do any design. You can actually just do consulting over a website and say like, hey, these are some pinpoints that I see that are happening on your website. Or like you can also do QA testing. Hey, I think that the shop is not actually working well for you guys because you're losing customers in that sense. You can also offer rebranding, and then there's so many other things that you can possibly offer. There's so much that you can do for UI UX design in general. So keep that in mind. There was a question too I had saw about, how do you hire your developers essentially? It's going to be the same thing too, where you're going to have to trust somebody, right? And you don't know how they're going to be like until you work with them. So what I do say is that it really depends on like, say my client has a very low budget, then I'll, hire somebody that's more wanting experience in student, but be very transparent with my client. Like, hey, I'm going to be hiring a student developer and everything. Are you going to be okay with the timeline? And it's going to be like a lower budget and everything. So I usually just ask friends like, hey, are you open for work? What are your rates essentially? And then sort of calculate together with the client. Because with that being said, you're going to be focusing more on UI UX design or just UX design. You need to be able to hire somebody with their strengths as well, because you offer your own strengths too. Yes. So also another thing too is that your style is your skill set, which is your product essentially. So keep that in mind. Your style specifically is your skill set and it is your product. So people are hiring you based on how you are and how you're selling yourself, and not only selling yourself, but also creating an experience yet again. So let me see. Here's another big tip too. So what I would say as well is that when you're gaining clients, you definitely want to do a consultation. So with that being said, it can be from 15 minutes, 30 minutes to even 45 minutes. You could also do an hour. You don't charge the client this consultation. You ask them basically what their needs are. How as a UI UX designer or UX designer can give a solution to their problems essentially. Because again, UI UX designers basically solve problems solve problems essentially. So you definitely want to do a consultation. So what I do typically is that I do a 30-minute consultation. And then I ask the right UX questions. It's all sort of like how you do surveys and stuff like that. So you can ask them basically, again, what are the needs? Basically, hey, like, what do you want to expand on essentially? Like, do you want, so the client could also be saying, I want to get more rapport on my clients. I want to make so much more transactions and everything. And so in that being said, we have to do that sort of thing and troubleshoot how to bring in more clients for them or more transactions. So some examples that you could do is basically, making sure that you put in a CTA. So CTA again is going to be called call to action. So really focusing on maybe getting more shopping experiences and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Yes. There's definitely a lot of questions that you could possibly ask during your consultation. It really depends on what type of niche you're going to go for. And with those being niches, again, like the UI UX design, your UX experience, like consultations, your wireframe and stuff like that. So it's like, there's a ton of questions that you can completely Google on. And I mean, unfortunately, I can't give you all the questions because every niche is going to be different. Like I focus more on like branding and website design. So some questions that I do ask is like, oh, what sort of like vision do you want for, what vision do you want for your brand essentially? So some certain things to answer or ask essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well,
Oh, sorry. Do you need?
No. I was just saying we have a lot of questions so far.
Oh gosh. Okay.
I was like, yeah, but it's okay if we can still, come back around and then see how we can wrap this up. So,
yes.
If you don't mind, the first question,
Yes.
I don't remember who asked this, but feel free to unmute yourself if this is your question. So, how has networking changed since quarantine for you, Lorrie?
Let me see. That's a hard one because I know that there's a lot of you that do remote work. It's definitely, well, during quarantine and everything, there was definitely not that much businesses operating in general. So what I essentially did was just like a lot of DMing and stuff on Instagram, or say that like, I don't know, a person needs a certain interest in like graphic design or website. Like website shops were thriving and everything. So that sort of thing, like I just messaged them. I'm like, hey, I saw that your website needs this. Can I offer you my services? Essentially, I was very shameless about it. Yeah.
Okay, I hope this answers the question. What do you recommend? Fiverr, etc., or how to find clients for such like brand new newbies in this field?
Right. You can absolutely use Fiverr. There's like freelancer.com. There's definitely a ton of websites. Fiverr is going to definitely gain basically your workload, which is really great. But, some other recommendations too is really have your work on like any of the like major websites and also having your own website itself. Take advantage of, social media as well to gain more clients as well. So I hope that answers your question. But yes, I recommend Fiverr for when you're beginning to make sure you have more workload.
Okay, I hope that also answers the question. If not, please let me know. The third question, what tips that you know now that you wish you knew when you first started? This is such a YouTube title headline question.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Some tips that I wish I knew is that I didn't know how to organize my files at all. So make sure you organize everything, because there are going to be some clients that are going to be like, hey, have you seen that one vector file or that one website PDF that, I lost it. Can you actually send it back to me?
Yeah.
And so with that being said, make sure you have everything like labeled and dated. Always have an archive of all your clients and everything. Ever since I was like an agency and with agency, I had everything like labeled. I remember my boss too was like, hey, Lorrie, there's a capital I instead of a lowercase I. And I was like, oh, let me adjust that. But yes, label everything, date everything, make sure it's easy and accessible.
Yeah, that's a very good one. That's a very good one. I have one question, but I wanted to finish all our audience questions so far. So how to gain a client worth or trust? Like, how do you impress them? I think you gave a really good answer about the talk about something that relates to what they cares the most, like their families, their pets, like. But what other advice do you have? Like just your sauce.
Oh gosh. Some other advice for sure is, yeah, just kind of like getting to know them more. It really depends on who you're talking to, because sometimes I definitely know that some people don't like my quirky personality. So I necessarily, if somebody's very professional and serious, I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. But if somebody's like really animated, then I will adapt to basically the personality. If they're going to be laughing at my jokes and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Then I can laugh with them more. But I really just sell myself and my personality. I try to also, let them remember me essentially. And, again, keep in mind, like always over deliver. And again, like the consultation thing is like for sure always win to get clients in. And just prepare for rejection. That is absolutely our world as designers. And then also criticism as well. So keep that in mind. I hope that answers your question.
That's really nice. That's really nice. There's a lot. So any advice for learning how to manage contracts, like for completely newbies?
Okay. There is, I'll give you a resource actually. So there's a
Write
website.
it down.
Yes. Actually, I can type it right now. So there's a website called weareindie.com. This is like very cheap as an option for a monthly basis. There's contracts for you that you can actually input there. There's already, you can create your own contract, and you can also basically populate their pre-made contracts there. It's going to be a lot different because, it depends on what niche you're going into specifically. But yes, that's all the answers. I wish I can give you more, but we're limited on time, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's it. Sign up for the one-on-one course with Lorrie.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, the next question, any situations you had to learn how to set boundaries with clients? I like this one. So whether that be creating contracts, or how does that work with an agency? Or I want to add a little bit personal questions about like when to stop. Like for someone as a perfectionist, like I don't know when to stop. I wanted to give everything, but tell us.
Okay. So to answer like your perfectionist troubles and woes, I am also a perfectionist myself. With that being said, it's like don't focus a lot on the little details, because you're trying to give out a big project in general. So you want to give out the bigger picture of things and then work on the little details afterwards. Sorry, can you ask your question again?
Yes. So any situation where you had to learn how to set boundaries with clients, creating contracts.
Okay. So for setting boundaries and everything, I make sure that I'm always very firm with them. Kind of tell them, just be very transparent, because once I'm transparent with them, like I don't have to set boundaries at that point. With that being said, like, when they ask me like, can you do this and this and this? And I'm like, I can't do any of that, but I can offer this essentially. So just being transparent, like, hey, I can't offer those skills, but you can hire somebody else, because somebody else is going to come in your lane and hire you instead. So another thing with boundaries too is just being very transparent. Another thing that I want to talk about too in the freelance thing is like limit your revisions if you're going to do project pay. So there's differences between project pay and hourly pay essentially. So keep that in mind. When you are doing project pay, limit yourself to X amount of revisions, because people like to take advantage of you, unfortunately so. But if you limit them on those revisions and you do an hourly rate, then you're like, it's worth the money and my time, essentially. Yes.
Yeah, love it. There is one last question for today. So far, what do you think that is the most exciting part of being as a freelance, but also the challenging part to prepare a right mindset for us to start this journey?
Right. The most exciting thing about this is that I get to be my own boss. I get to travel, I get to travel whenever I'd like to versus like working a full-time job. Like I'm set to a schedule and everything. And with that being said, it's like I'm at a higher price point now where I can just do a few projects in the year now. And, most of the time I can relax whenever I'd like to. I can decline clients for like a month per se. Like, it's fun. And then the challenging part about it is that I am literally doing everything. And sometimes I had wished that like I had somebody else to just do all the messaging, but I'm the reason why people come to me is because they personally talk to me specifically, right? So if I sort of like lose that experience of having a virtual assistant, doing messages and stuff like that, which I did try, keep in mind, they were like, can I just talk to Lorrie? And I was like, damn it, I just want to design. But yeah, challenging that. And then also, again, like being perfectionist, like I want to complete everything to the T. But I've realized that like I cannot give every single detail. I just have to give them basically, the solutions to their problem very quickly and fast.
Hey everyone, on behalf of IterateUX, we would like to thank you so much for watching this week's event. If you like the content, please leave a like and subscribe. We'll have events every Thursday at 5:30 Pacific Time. Join our Discord in the description to find out more.